Hello and welcome back, and it's the new year, and we have a new episode with the Eve probe. We have 3 launches today, all on Phoenix 2s, and yeah, I would like it if you could just, like, share, subscribe, maybe even, leave a comment. It would be kind of nice. I like it when there's comments. Other than that, let's get into it. So today we're starting with Venus 1, and Venus 1 is our mission to Venus. Now that it's an unmanned mission, it is our first unmanned mission, and it's not to Venus, it's to Eve. Oops. And then, I mean, look at those clouds. Look at those clouds. Oh my gosh. Black Rack is a god. Anyway, here we have it, currently doing its gravity turn, heading through the upper atmosphere. Well, actually, it's still in the lower atmosphere, but it's on its way to the upper atmosphere. It is turning, and we are about to hit main engine cutoff, coming up in just a couple of seconds. We do get a little toasty, which is, it's a little fun. There's main engine cutoff, and here's separation of the first and second stages. They are, and then there goes the fairing. And we're about to see the first stage re-enter the upper atmosphere. And then while that's happening, the second stage will be circularizing itself around the planet in order to basically keep itself in a perfectly stable orbit. Now, the first stage is about to come in for its landing here. Unfortunately, the ground is not exactly flat here. So it's, it's going to tip over. And so it tipped over, but those little winglets up at the top actually helped protect it from hitting the ground too hard. But here we are. I'm setting the course to Eve, and the dates don't line up exactly, so I have to fast forward us quite a bit. And I actually have to cut out just a little bit, specifically because anyone with epilepsy would quite literally seize out like crazy. Anyway, this is the start of our burn right here. It is very quick because I have it at 4 times speed on top of 5 times speed, or actually 9 times speed. But you'll notice that we used the second stage as a little tug, but we're still going to recover it. We're just going to use all of the remaining fuel in order to do so. But so I swapped over to that, and I have it coming in at very quick speeds, and I will also use its engines to help bleed off a good portion of that velocity. Normally in most of these videos, I actually don't include this because it's just kind of tedious, and I do it really all at once. But in this one, you actually get to see me do it because it actually made sense to do it right then. Anyway, now we are doing the second launch of the day, the Minmus Surveyor, also being launched on a Phoenix 2. And it is on its way to Minmus, and it will actually show us the materials that are on Minmus so that we don't have to just guess, and we can actually just figure out where we need to put our small little colonies in order to, mine from the surface of each one of those planets. So, or not one of those planets, but we will use other surveyors in the future to actually look at the surfaces of other planets. But we specifically need fuel on Minmus, specifically because Minmus's gravity is so low and it's so resource rich that it can actually just really help as a real good refueling base. And that's what it's doing there. Now, the first stage is coming in from way up outside of the atmosphere. So I have sped it up just a little bit there. Our second stage is now in a perfectly circular orbit. And here is our first stage coming in over the water. 3 engines active. Just kind of like how SpaceX does it with some of their launches, but we do it with most of ours in this case. And here it is coming over the water. I don't have a drone ship, but it'd be kind of cool if I did. And there it is in the water. Now, the second stage is going to shoot out to Minmus. Not the Mun. I did accidentally think about sending it out to the Mun, and then I was like, oh, wait, I'm actually doing Minmus today, not the Mun. Why am I doing this? And yep, I had to create a small little node that'll send us out there. And there we go. We are off on our way to the Minmus, and we will we'll be able to circularize and do what this satellite is specifically designed to do, which is just orbit. That's all it's designed to do. It's just orbit over the planet in a certain, or not the planet, the moon. It's supposed to orbit the Minmus at a certain orbit so that it basically collects all the data it can between the given areas, and it's going to need to be in more of a polar orbit, which will allow it to go over all of the biomes, and then with that we will be able to get all the data we could ever need about where things are and where we need to eventually put down a base. And it actually helped me find the location of one of the salt flats where I believe that we are going to start a fueling base. Yeah. We're finally getting to use bases like how we wanted to use bases, which is refreshing. Here I was kind of cycling through a bunch of the map modes. And yeah, but we're going to skip on to the next part. So here is PolarSat 1, and this is just to complete a contract where I needed to get a satellite into a polar orbit and keep it there, which is what I basically am going to do. It's not a particularly hard job to put something in a polar orbit, although I believe in the next episode I kind of fumbled that one. Yep. So here's our very basic satellite going into a polar orbit, while our first stage currently re-enters the atmosphere and is now coming in for a landing at a decently high speed and pretty vertical for what I was thinking it would do. But here's our rocket basically in the polar orbit, and it is going to well, it's going to do all the things we need it to do. And here we are. We are basically in a polar orbit. And it's not quite the correct polar orbit, but I also noticed the glitch happened again where the thing doesn't recognize the strength of the antennas on board. I checked the strength. They are more than 15G once combined, and the contract accepts combinable, and other contracts were accepting it, but this one isn't because it's from that same contract company. So I just kind of like, it's really not worth the extra hassle to get it into the right place. It is in a polar orbit. It's in a pretty stable polar orbit. I think I'm gonna just leave it here, and then maybe come back to it at a later date, which is probably what I'm going to do. Yeah. Anyway, here I am just making sure that yeah, that was me looking into it just then when I was kind of off doing whatever. And yeah, here's Venus 1. By now it's actually made its way pretty deep into interplanetary space, and it is going to be doing a small correction burn so that we can make sure that you know, we don't just miss Eve entirely, which would be very unfortunate, especially because of how expensive this mission was and how expensive this probe was. But yeah, it's very much worth it. The sheer amount of science we can get from Eve is like insane. And I'm actually going to send a similar probe out to Duna pretty soon. And speaking of Duna, here we have the Calypso, and it's time for it to come back home. Yep, it has been out there for a while, and it needs to come home. For the Kerbals, it's probably been several years since they've gotten to Duna, and they really need to get home. So, yeah, we're sending them home. Of course, the Calypso, being the Calypso, is horrifically slow, so you're currently watching it at 9 times speed, while in 3 times speed in game. Yeah, there we go. We now have an encounter with Kerbin, and we have a plotted, basically, orbit. It's a pretty elliptical orbit, but I'm certain we'll be able to figure it out by the time we actually need to do something about it. But that's it for today, guys, and yeah, goodbye. And if you like this, click one of the videos that you can see right here. It helps me out, and then maybe you'll enjoy it too. Bye!